I really wanted to make their fingertips like almost black, like really dark purple, like they're frostbitten. Basically, kind of the idea is that she's like this frozen, dead ice queen. Yes, I admit I used to redraw princesses, Disney princesses, a lot. Like, more than I care to admit. What can I say? I'm an old Tumblr girl at heart. Also, I haven't drawn in a month and I'm feeling antsy to do some designing. What do you... Oh, this? It's true, I'm a wedded woman. Like, I'm married. Okay, you can go. Pretty cool. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, I haven't drawn in like a month. I'm getting really antsy. I really want to design something. So I gave myself an assignment in the same way that like I would approach like a character design assignment from work. So that's what I'm doing in unemployment, I guess. So as Halloween approaches, I'm getting into a little spooky mindset. I'm thinking about redesigning something in a horror fashion, maybe. And then I think to myself, wouldn't a snow queen be cool? And then I think to myself, wasn't Elsa supposed to be kind of like a villain almost? Then she wasn't. But what if Elsa did become the villain? And also that movie maybe was like PG-13. That's what I started doing. I put together a mood board on Pinterest. I looked at a lot of effects makeup, some really like glowy, dewy eyes. I like the vibe there. Like a little spooky, a little bit more witchy. So often Ice Queen looks are like very fur and she's very warm. I want her to look so uncomfortable and like so cold and frostbitten, but she doesn't feel any of it. So she prospers in that. You know what I mean? I do really like in the Disney version how Elsa wears like very thin clothing. Like she really embraces the cold, which I feel like a lot of Ice Queen looks don't do. So like I said, I'm approaching this as I approach any assignment that like a director gives me for a show or a film. I already have my description, I already have my mood board. I know the direction I'm kind of trying to go into. So I start sketching out 3 different concepts. I have 2 with like a staff, a magic staff, and then the last one is not. They're very fashion forward and I'm really trying to like in the sketching phase just make an interesting like idea of a silhouette, of a concept, of posing, of like shapes and angles within her. Like it's pretty loose at this point, so I'm not really like flushing in what the face is gonna look like or what the material is gonna look like. It's all up in here and in the mood board, right? Once I rearrange the characters in a way that I think looks cohesive, the composition works well together, I'm gonna start fleshing it out a little bit more and I start to go into a line soon. Usually I go straight from a sketch into like a coloring phase, but this was really messy. And because I wanted like cleaner shapes and cleaner lines when it comes to the fabric, she's very like clean girl aesthetic almost. I really thought that I had to align a little bit. And then I also had to hold back on lining because I knew there was no point of lining the hair. The hair is going to be white. I'm just going to do a shape of color on top. So I kind of avoided lining a few things here and there. My idea with the hair is I want it to look so stringy. Like, you know, when you go outside and your hair is wet and it becomes like icy, it's so uncomfortable, it's so stringy, it's like stuck to your head. Like that's the look I wanted to go for. I wanted to be like borderline, like nasty. Like with the first character, I'm trying to give her like a slicked back hair. It's a little frosty on top. It's short. I think that's cool. And then the other 2 characters are longer hair. I also think that like short hair is a little bit bold. The rest of the costume really has to pull through, right? If there's not a lot of busyness at the top, you have to make busyness at the bottom. So I'm still like trying to figure out the shapes in the line process. My general idea is that the first character with the short hair, she has not a very busy top and then a very busy bottom. Like it's all like bottom heavy. The middle character is kind of, well, I'll get back to her. And then the final character is like top heavy. There's a lot of busyness going on at the top and then it becomes really simple when you get to that point of her feet. And then going back to that center character, like in the middle area, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of like sheer and there's going to be a lot of see-through colors. It's very ethereal looking. Trying to go a little bit for like the northern lights a little bit. You know, it's cold, it's dark. Now before I start painting, let me tell you about today's sponsor. You know I use Squarespace for my portfolio and shop website. I've been using it for years and I've never been disappointed. It's so easy to customize with so many templates to choose from, and it always looks professional, and I don't have to know anything about tech or coding to make it work. I also host my shop here where I can manage everything from inventory to sales. It's super simple and my customers get to use any payment they want, like Klarna, Apple Pay, Afterpay, PayPal, etc., etc., etc. I'm a big fan of having a clear and simple website. So why not go ahead and make your own website with a free trial? And when you're ready, you can use my code JackieDrushko for 10% off your domain or website. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to painting. Once I block out the base of the silhouette and I have like the basic colors going on, I always focus on the face because I want the face to be like the most rendered parts. And then, as I get sick of this project and I get bored, then I could kind of rush the rest, but I don't want to rush the face. That's like kind of the funnest part, I think, right? I'm making her cheeks really kind of pinkish blue, like she's so cold, she's frostbitten, her cheeks are probably hard and stuff, and making her skin color like blue. She's like barely human still at this point. And I really wanted her hair to be white, but I am careful not to make a pure white because, I still want some highlights to be lighter than her hair. I make a mistake at the beginning where I think I put in a little too much vibrant colors and then I have to dial back a little bit. No, she's not a protagonist, she's the antagonist. She can't be too teal and too blue. I'm looking at one of these concept pieces by James Wood. He has this beautiful Knox painting concept art, the water horse in Frozen 2, and it's so beautifully done, and you can really like understand like how transparent and translucent and it's almost water, and I think that's beautiful. So I try to do that. I come back to it in a minute. I take a break and I come back to it. This is kind of what I meant by things being a little bit too bright. Like the center character's costume is way too bright and teal. It does not look that evil, and the way that I was applying those gradients to try to look similar to that horse was just like there was no thought put into it. There was nothing there. So I'm going back and I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate with how I decide to do that. I'll come back to it in a minute. I'm just doing the faces of the rest of the characters because I think that that's my favorite part. It's fun to do. And also it kind of gives me a base of how I want to go in the rest of the direction of the clothing for everybody else. Like once I get the skin tone, once I get the hair color, then costuming comes afterwards. So I made this first character with the bob. I wanted to make her skin like darker to emphasize the white a little bit more of her hair. Like the other two characters, like I was like, oh, it'd be cool if like her skin color was almost like her hair color. And this character, I tried a slight different variation. Although all these characters are very similar in vibe, like they're all high fashion, they're all tall and thin, they all have white hair, right? They're very much all could be the same character, and that's like what I'm trying to go for. So I'm not really trying to create like huge variations of characters, more like slight differences. This character, the center character's hips, I was kind of thinking like cool, like belt icicle situation. I don't know. And then I thought for the back of her hair, I was thinking of having her hair straight in the back. And then I was thinking, well, because Elsa, she has a braid and this is kind of like a different variation of Elsa, maybe I'll have one character that kind of has a callback to that braid. Looking back at it now, I kind of wish I did the shape a little bit differently. So I'm going back in with a new strategy on how to do the fabric. Did one layer on a low opacity, so even when I do erasing on top of it with like this new gradient and this brush, they'll still have a little bit of sheer underneath. So I think it looks nice. Obviously, it doesn't look as good as that original painting of that horse, but I still think there's something to it. This costume in general obviously is not very animatable unless we were to figure it out again. So if this was to be chosen as the final design and they're like, yes, the director's like, yes, the center one, that's what I want as the character, then I'd have to go in and I'd have to figure out actually how this top fabric works, how this shirt works. I'd figure out, well, the part around her chest and then it goes around her ribs and then I guess it circles back, and then the part that drapes over her, it's kind of like a fabric that bubbles around her wrist, so maybe it's connected at the wrist and the rest of it is loose fabric. That makes sense. Obviously it's very complicated, probably not good good for animation. And this is the character that I'm really trying to make this more ethereal, sheer like material on her outfit, kind of reminiscent of the Northern Lights, you know, so trying to bring those bits back in using the liquify tool. I love the liquify tool, making it all zigzaggy and weird, trying to figure out, well, how much of it is like, has a pretty low transparency. Is it sheer? What kind of fabric is this? Is it super see-through? Because I don't want it to compete with the dress. I want it to be a little bit more subtle than the dress. So I kind of tried to lower the transparency a little bit. And then with these parts over the corset, once again, it's just for the shape. Who knows how it actually works? Because I sure don't. I really was trying to focus on this drapery over, and I really like that shape, and I'm assuming it's got some wire in there to kind of hold that shape. And then around the corset, I wanted to make like these icicle ribs things that are kind of holding the corset up. They kind of look a little bit too much like ribs, and I think I could have lowered the transparency, make it look a little bit more see-through. And then looking back as well, I feel like there wasn't enough differences in texture on this third character in her outfit. Like everything seems like a similar material. I think the corset probably could have had different texture, different material to make it really feel different on her dress. But I love that third character. The second and third character are my favorite. I think they're so chic. I love their shape. I think it's awesome. I really like the hair of this third character, and the way I did her crown was more like antlers, and it's coming out from behind her. So it's less like a traditional crown like, you know, the first two characters, and it's still like a statement piece on her head, something that gives her this like royal look, this idea of she's something more. There's like this regality to her, right? So that was kind of my take on what a different type of crown would look like. Oh, also on this first and second character, even though their skin tone is quite light, I really wanted to make their fingertips like almost black, like really dark purple, like they're frostbitten. Basically, kind of the idea is that she's like this frozen, dead ice queen, right? So yes, she has fabulous fingers. She has these long hands, these long fingers, long fingernails, but the tips are black, and I thought that was cool. Also in the second character, I made her hands like wickedly large. Like her hands are huge and her fingers are huge, and I thought it was just like a really unnerving characteristic to her. She's not quite this beautiful queen that you think she is. There's like something very unnerving to her, and I thought that was neat. And then this first character was my least favorite design. You know, I haven't drawn in a very long time. I haven't drawn in, I think, like a month. You know, I got married, so like I've been busy. So this first design was my first drawing back, basically. So I kind of just like went for it, and then once I start warming up, I drew the second and third character. So that first character I feel like doesn't quite hit what I'm looking for, but that's the whole point. You know, you draw multiple variations because, you know, they're not always going to be your best. Your first drawing is never your best drawing. Well, sometimes it is. But I do like the idea of that first character. I like the idea of like this short bob and this super drapey material over her chest, like little pieces of like ice almost, like dripping off, almost like crystals. I think it's super beautiful. And overall, in general, I added like a bunch of little like snow bits here and there, a little bit of like shimmer everywhere. She's so fabulous. There's snow everywhere. There's like little bits of like ice and frost. I think that should be covered in frost, and I think it would look like glitter. I think it'd be so cool. And that's my idea of what Elsa would look like in a horror, more grown up in a scarier version where she actually becomes the villain, right? At least how I would design her, I think. That would be pretty cool. And I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear which one's your favorite. My favorite, I think, is the second and third one. It's really hard to tell. I don't know. Either way, this would be a great cosplay, a great Halloween costume, and I urge you to make it. And let me know if I should redesign another character, because I'm thinking about it. I still got that bug. I still got that itch. And maybe, I don't know, right? Tell someone you love them today, because I will. Okay, bye.